Coming up on Eternal Companions.
And the reason I said that was because there was a small fear that this is the only girl I've ever been on more than 2 dates with.
Totally.
And the only girl I've kissed. And I don't want to be, because I hadn't experienced other relationships, I didn't have anything to compare it to.
Right.
And so I needed to make it like an option for me, whereas beforehand you were the only option ever.
Welcome back to the Eternal Companions podcast. We're your hosts, Scott and Sarah.
On this podcast, we share the secret to developing and maintaining a long-lasting and fulfilling relationship.
This is part 2 of our love story. And why don't you just start us off, Scott?
Well, if you haven't listened to part 1, you should go back and listen. It's pretty crazy.
It's pretty dramatic.
It's fun. It's a fun story for anyone to listen to. So I would recommend listening. So where we left off was we had a mutual friend who somewhat sneakily took us both to Taco Bell. And we said that kind of rekindled our relationship. That was near the end of our senior year of high school. And
we, from that point forward, just sort of kept in like casual communication. We didn't really go on dates or anything like that. But then we saw each other at a graduation party. And I felt that that was the first time that I felt like positively about the potential of us moving forward because we were able to be in a group setting as friends.
Yeah.
Nothing weird happened. It was fun.
It was fun. I remember there was one girl who was trying to talk to me, and I've heard some funny stories about your interactions with her.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I was always very possessive of you, which I shouldn't have been. That was not my place, but I was. And I remember when you left before everybody else did, she asked afterwards, like, who was that? Because I went to high school with that girl. It was a different high school than you went to. And everybody was like, oh, that's Scott. And she's like, is he single? And I was like, no. And I was like so rude about it, and everybody was like, Scott has a girlfriend. And then when she left, they were like, who's Scott dating? And I was like, nobody, but like he's gonna date me. And I just really didn't want her to chat you up. I was pretty jealous, but
that's funny.
Yeah, that was like when we started seeing each other again. And then after that, I decided that I wanted to date you. I saw you as like more of an adult. I mean, that sounds silly to think that a just graduated high school senior is an adult, but compared to us when we were 12, you were an adult to me. And I was like, okay, I still am interested in him, so I want to date him. But I didn't think that it would just happen naturally at that point.
Yeah, so you created a plan.
I did. A plan fell into my lap. So I learned about this concert for 2 of, I think, our favorite bands. It is your favorite band, Dashboard Confessional, and then the other band was Taking Back Sunday. And I was like, oh, that would be one, just really fun to go to. Like, I wanted to go to that concert regardless, but I was like, this is a perfect opportunity for me to see Scott again. And so I texted you right away as soon as I found out about the concert, and I was like, hey, I have 2 tickets to this show. I did not. I had 0 tickets actually. And I said, my date canceled on me. I had no date. There was no plan for me to go to this. I had no date, whatever. So my date canceled on me. I have these 2 tickets. It's in Phoenix, and I'm like scared to go by myself. Would you maybe want to come with me? And like, I already have the tickets, so you don't have to pay for your ticket. Because I always knew that that was also another thing that was on your mind. Like, you're a frugal boy. I'm like, I want to remove any reason for him to say no. And so I was like, I have the tickets. I didn't. And then, so I texted that to you.
Yeah. My quick thoughts is, in a more healthy relationship, it probably could have been fine to say, hey, do you want to go to this concert?
Yeah.
I'll buy you a ticket.
Yeah, total. That would be more healthy. We did not have a healthy relationship. No, it definitely wasn't. And I kind of thought like I needed to play games with you because I felt that you were playing games with me up to this point. I know now that that's not true at all. You were playing games with yourself a little bit, you know, like, so in hindsight, I definitely did not need to do that, but I felt like I really had to strategize my way into this relationship, which is crazy.
It's understandable that you felt like that.
Right.
And so you invited me, and I thought, that sounds like fun. Let's go.
And on my end, I was like, oh my gosh, like now is my time to shine. Like I really planned. I remember planning my outfit. I went to Hawaii for a graduation trip with my mom, and I bought my outfit in Hawaii at those
I don't
outlets.
even remember what you were wearing.
Oh, I remember, but we don't have to get into that. Like it's not relevant, but like it's such a different memory for a girl than it is for a boy. I feel like I always remember getting ready for these things. It's so weird. But we went on this date and we went to Chipotle before for dinner together, and it was awkward.
Yeah,
from my perspective.
Before the concert actually started, and it was just us hanging out.
Yeah.
As adults on like a official date.
Right.
It was definitely, there was tension, or maybe it was the fact that we weren't calling it a date.
Yes.
Because it was like you said, oh hey, my other person canceled.
Yeah.
I was the backup, and so it was us hanging out in a date-like setting, not on a date, having not seen each other very much for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And we still obviously, just having a history makes that kind of tension.
Yeah, and it was kind of an unspoken history too. Like we weren't bringing anything up from the past. I was just like, how's your brother? How's your parents? How was high school? You know, it was like super weird. But then the concert was a lot of fun and everything went well, and we came back home, like you dropped me off or whatever it was. And we had made plans to go to another concert together for another one of our favorite bands in October. And that happened over the summer. So I remember I was like, the games are going to continue. I'm going to keep messing with this kid. And I texted you the following morning and I was like, hey, I had a really great time with you last night. See you in October. And that was like, I crafted that message and I was like, yes, that was the perfect thing to say. Like I felt so proud of myself and I had no reason to. You know what I mean? Like I was playing a game, but you were not playing this game.
Like I would have thought, okay, cool.
Yeah, but.
However.
Go ahead.
What did I respond?
You replied and you were like, wait. I had a really great time with you last night. I think I would like to see you again soon, like sooner than October. And I was like, excellent, my plan worked.
That's a very honest thing. I'm proud of myself for back then because, like most other people, I thought that dating was this special game where you're trying to trick someone into liking you, which is not. That's not what it is. That's a bad way to do it.
Yeah, I'm totally proud of you too.
And so being honest, saying I had a good time, I'd like to see you again, totally transparent. It is vulnerable, but if you think about it, that's not that like the worst case scenario, which is pretty unlikely, is for them to say, I don't want to see you again. I didn't like you.
Right.
But we already had plans for October.
Right. And yeah, so I was really excited to get that message from you. And I felt like you were finally giving me what I needed, which was like validation that you were just as interested in me as I was in you. Because at that point, it wasn't like I was completely infatuated with you. I was very nervous that something would go wrong and my heart would get broken. But I knew there was an interest there and it was something that I wanted to explore as adults. And at the very minimum, I was hoping to at least like close a chapter if that's what had to happen. So I was really happy with the way that that went. And then we started dating over the summer and it was like legitimate dating. We went on hikes together. We went to
a water park.
We went to IKEA, the dog shelter.
Special water park in our history.
Yes, it is. I don't know if we're going to get into the water park history, but but yeah, it was a lot of fun to date you over the summer. And then I moved into my dorm at ASU. And you also were going to ASU that semester. And I feel like that's when our relationship really like became a relationship, was around that time.
Yeah, we then spent a lot of time with each other.
Yeah.
Which beforehand, it, it was hard to spend time with each other. We didn't have cars or money.
And you were keeping me a secret.
And you were a secret.
And I still was.
You were still a secret, but now my secret lived by herself.
And you were going to school where I lived.
Traveling away from, I was driving to school every day.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't know or care about what my school schedule or work schedule was.
Right.
They were like, oh, he takes care of that by himself. And so I did.
Yeah. And that was a really, really fun semester.
Super fun.
We went to Disneyland together.
Yeah.
That was super fun.
True. I forgot that happened then.
Yeah.
We went to Disneyland
twice that semester. Alone.
Uh-huh. And we slept in a car.
We did. That was crazy. I'm glad we did that, but you also lied about that.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents had no clue you were.
I thought I was camping.
You
with
were.
Some friends.
You were
I
camping.
Was camping in a car.
In a car.
We'll get into the Disneyland details, but driving home from Disneyland both times was crazy.
It was like
one time,
life on the line.
The 10 was shut down. We had to find a way home without having like data on your phone.
Yeah, we had, and you still didn't have a smartphone.
I did not have a smartphone. Thank goodness. I think we were guided and directed by the Spirit of the Lord.
I think so too.
I also think I had been down that road in California, and I knew the interstates to get between Phoenix and Los Angeles, and I knew a road that got you between those two interstates.
Thank goodness, because we were going to be lost otherwise. But yeah, that was like a really special time before you left on your mission, which we'll get into. But it was great because we actually got to travel together. And I think that's one of the best ways to get to know somebody is, being in those stressful situations together. And we did great.
Yeah. Another key thing that happened during that semester was that you chose to get baptized.
Yes, that is true. So we can talk a little bit more about that. Why was that a key thing for our relationship in your perspective?
You have to know a bit about the church I'm a part of. If you're a listener, I was born into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it has wonderful teachings about marriage and family. And a lot of these things have been solidified for me in my life since getting married.
That's so sweet.
But I believe these things because it was, what my parents had taught me. And I had some spiritual experiences that helped me to believe in this church. But we believe that marriage can last after death. Through God's power, two people can be married after they die, right? Forever.
I love that.
Forever and ever.
That's my goal.
I also think that there's a lot of beautiful teachings about parenthood, right? Having children and the love that you feel for children on this earth is one of the best ways to feel like God. That's a weird statement, but to have feelings that God has to a certain extent, right? Him being our Father and an incredible, unconditional, extreme amount of love, right? Is something that you can't really recreate outside of a marriage and having children together.
I agree with that. So that's excellent context. So for my end of the context, I was not born into this church. I was not a member of this church, but I had a lot of these beliefs prior to becoming a member of the church. That's a spoiler. I'm now a member of the church. But I was really interested in all of these teachings, and I did have a belief in it. And I wasn't allowed to attend this church or get baptized into this church or participate in any way until I either turned 18 or moved out of my family's home. So I moved out when I was 17. And pretty much right away, I started attending this church completely separate from you. Did you even know that I was going to church?
I didn't know until you asked me to baptize
That's
you.
crazy that I didn't tell you. But I think that I really wanted to make sure that it was for me.
I might have known you were meeting with missionaries.
Maybe.
But maybe not.
You didn't go to any of my discussions with the missionaries or anything like that. I remember, and we didn't really talk about it very much. And that's, I think, a big misconception in our relationship specifically is I remember when I did get baptized, a lot of people reached out to me. They were like, "Hey, are you okay?" Like, "Yeah, I'm great. Why?" And they were like, "Are you doing this just for Scott?" And I was like, "Oh, no, this has nothing to do with Scott at all." And so I do remember when I decided I did want to get baptized, I was like, who should baptize me? And I said, maybe Scott would be a good person to baptize me, because way back in the day, you did tell me about the church, and I do give you credit for that. And also, we have a close relationship, and I trust you very much. Did I trust you very much at the time? I think I was learning to, but I decided that that would be a really nice gesture for you to do for me and for me to do for you.
Yeah, it was. It was a great experience that brought us closer together, kind of opened up the invisible wall that was stopping us from speaking about religious things.
Yeah.
And then it also made it in my mind like, wow, now I can marry Sarah because we can get married in the temple, and that marriage, the marriage I talked about, which will last forever. And so I was excited.
Yeah. And just to like add a little disclaimer, members of the church can marry members of other faiths or people who are not religious at all. It was just your preference to marry somebody of the same faith who could get married in the temple with you, because that was your goal. But you don't have to. I just want to add that disclaimer. But for you, you did have to. That was really important for you. So my question is like, how did you see our relationship from there going forward? Like, was it extremely different in your eyes, or was it just like, we're still just having fun?
The relationship itself didn't change. It was the potential for the future of the relationship that changed. However, I was still in the mindset of, I'm about to leave for 2 years.
Right. Talk about that.
Well, when you're a missionary, you leave for 2 years.
Yeah, I don't think we even mentioned that you were going on your mission yet.
I was going to be leaving to be a missionary for 2 years. And they send you away. You don't know where you're going, but it's 99% of the time out of state, at least, and a lot of times out of the country.
Yeah.
During that time, you are not really supposed to be in a relationship. It's not bad to like have someone waiting at home necessarily, but that is not your focus.
And like, you also don't have a job during that time or go to school. Your like, it's not just about relationships.
It's full-time
service.
Missionary, right? And when they say full-time, they mean 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m.
daily.
7 days a week.
Yeah.
When you're awake.
Yeah.
When you dream. I had a few missionaries I was with who also would sit up in their sleep and start teaching people about Jesus in their dreams.
That's really
Shout
sweet.
out to Jake Ferentz if he's listening to this. But yeah, that full time means no other things are really going on in your life. It also means you don't really communicate with home. There's 1 day per week where you can message people from home or email.
In written form only.
And phone calls are to family on Mother's Day and Christmas. And those rules have become a little less strict lately, but that's how it was when I was a missionary.
Yeah. So we had this knowledge that you were going to be going on a mission. And I remember there was a big discussion within yourself that you would then share sometimes with me of like, should I go to school for 1 year and then go on a mission? Or should I go after just 1 semester or 6 months? And you ultimately decided that 1 semester of school was sufficient, and then you were going to go on your mission. And so we kind of had this looming over us a little bit during our relationship before you left on your mission of like, this is really fun, things are going really well, but you're going to be leaving.
But I'm leaving. And there's an unknown. Right?
Totally.
The unknown for me is, are you going to be here when I get back? Are we, for both of us, was probably a bit of, are we going to still like each other?
Are we going to be the same people?
In 2 years' time, after a whole lot of experiences. And the unknowns just made it like, right now, let's just focus on the present.
Yeah, having fun.
We don't have to make big plans for the future
Totally.
because there are so many unknowns.
Totally. But ultimately, we decided that I would wait for you.
Yeah.
And that was a joint decision. At first, it was something that I knew that I wanted to do and that I was going to do regardless.
Yeah.
Even if you told me not to, which
I did tell you not to. I said, you shouldn't wait for me. You should live your life and do what makes you happy. It was me trying to not be selfish.
right. And then I was like, is that what you really want? Or is that what you think that you should want? Is kind of, I think, what I said. And what did you say? Do you remember?
Well, then I think I said, well, no, you should wait for me then.
Yeah.
Like, and you wanted me to want you to wait for me.
Yeah, I needed to hear that if I was going to spend the next 2 years as somebody who's 18 years old, like shutting down my life in that department.
A hermit.
Yeah, I was a hermit. So I did end up waiting for you. You left on your mission. I was a sad girl for a couple of weeks, and then I bounced back and I just decided like I'm going to go to school like more than full time. Going to get 3 jobs. I'm going to move into my own apartment. I'm going to become an adult because Scott is becoming an adult right now too.
And by only writing to each other for quite a bit, instant messaging on Mondays. Oh, it was Monday for me.
It was Sunday night for me.
Yeah.
He was 14 hours ahead. He was in Thailand.
Yes, I lived in Thailand for 2 years.
I lived in Gilbert, Arizona.
And that writing to each other and communicating that way was very foundational, I think, for our relationship moving forward.
It was.
We spoke about a lot of things. We both were developing into more mature people during that time. Me especially.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it was a very accelerated pace to live in a different country with people I didn't know, kind of solo, right?
Yeah.
It was me and other 18 to 25-year-old
And those
boys.
people are changing so regularly. You're learning so much about new people. You're learning how to live with different personalities.
And also visiting and communicating with the local people constantly, seeing all sorts of different cultures and lifestyles and relationships. It was a very incredible time. And also to be focused 100% on religion and teaching people about Jesus Christ. I grew a lot. You grew a lot during that time as well. And we spoke about it.
We did.
And we changed from only talking about the present, which previously for us had been little kid things, essentially.
Yeah, teenager things.
To talking about real life, to talking about relationships and what relationships can look like, to sharing our religious beliefs with each other and goals and dreams.
I think that was a really special time, and it was difficult in some ways because, of course, I missed you, but I would not take that time back or change it in any way at all.
Yeah, me
so
neither.
then it was time for you to come home from your mission. And well, let's go back just a little bit. Do you remember the Mother's Day before you came home from your mission?
Yeah. So what month is Mother's Day? May?
I think May.
So I was coming home from my mission in December.
Yes.
And in May, I spoke to my family on the phone and I told them that I was going to get married pretty quickly after I came home.
Okay, and for context, his family still had no idea about me.
Yep.
So he leads that conversation with BT dubs, I'm going to get married. Crazy boy.
Which I hadn't really told you either.
No, you didn't tell me because
didn't
the
tell
next
you.
morning I wake up and I have a Facebook friend request from every member of his family. I email him and I'm like, what in the heck is going on? Like, I'm scared. I'm scared of these people because here's another thing. I was scared of your family because you kind of instilled that fear in me of like,
Yeah,
I
I was
can't
scared
tell
of
them
them.
about you because something big and scary will happen.
Something big and scary did happen.
I know. They took you away from me and me away from you, and that was really scary. But yeah, so from my perspective, I was nervous. But you told them about me a
Yeah.
little bit.
And I was 20.
Yeah. You were 21,
I was 21 already.
I think. No, you were 20.
I was
You were 20.
I was 20 years old. And so at that point, having become an adult now, I thought to myself, I can tell them
Anything.
in my life and no matter their reaction, that's my life. And I had matured to that point where I wasn't afraid to be open with my family.
Yeah.
I was still anticipating the potential of negative reactions, but I knew how to deal with that.
Totally.
At that point.
So then after that, your sister, who's your older sister by 10 years, reached out to me and asked if she could get to know me. And I thought that was a really good thing for her to do. And so her and I started going to lunch together or things like that. We actually went to church together a few times, I believe, too. And it was good to get to know your family a little bit. And she was kind of trying to talk me, in my perspective, talk me out of being with you. She would be like, she would tell me about you as if I didn't know you. And that was interesting because everything that she said was wildly inaccurate. And if you are listening to this, dear sister, I hope that you know Scott better now because he's an excellent man and that's not how you portrayed him. But it was good for me to hear what other people had to say about you and know that I know more in a way that really solidified, like, I know this man. And that made me feel really good. So then when you were going to come home from your mission, she actually reached out to me and was like, hey, my mom wants you to come to the airport. Yeah. And I was like, not expecting that by any means because I wasn't close to your family and you didn't know that I was going to be at the airport.
I didn't know. I didn't want you there.
Oh, I totally understand.
I didn't not want you there.
You were such a strict missionary. Like, if you see missionary homecoming videos where the boyfriend and the girlfriend run into each other's arms, that is not what it was like.
I was still
you were a missionary.
I had not been released.
That was serious to you.
And
that was sacred to you.
Yeah. And did we shake hands?
We did. We shook hands and then we took a photo together, but you're not allowed to be in a photo with a woman alone. So your dad was in the picture with us.
That's good.
And Callista was there and she was like, Sarah, this is not good. Like, this is not going well. And I'm like, no, this is kind of what I expected just because I did know you so well. And I knew how serious this whole experience was to you. But yeah, we started dating like really fast after your mission. You got home December 28th and that was like a Friday. And then on Sunday was church where you had your homecoming talk. And then New Year's Eve was when was that Monday night? I believe so.
Yeah. We went on a date.
At my house.
At your house.
My apartment.
We had dinner.
Yeah.
And we watched fireworks.
We did. And that was a really awesome date. And
we had a discussion about our relationship.
We did.
A very serious discussion where we decided to continue the relationship,
formally.
Dating exclusively, moving forward.
Yeah. I remember you said something that's like super silly, but it pissed me off. You were like, okay, if like we will try this, but like if it doesn't work, then like we have to break up. And I was like, duh.
Because I hadn't experienced other relationships, I didn't have anything to compare it to.
Right.
And so I needed to make it like an option for me, whereas beforehand you were the only option ever, Looking back, again, it probably didn't need to be said.
Right.
Because we would have broken up if we broke up. And also, that's like a weird way to start your relationship together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a relationship had been kind of going on for almost a decade.
Totally.
In a very informal, fluid, rocky way.
Totally. And I definitely understand where you were coming from now. And I hope that you understand where I was coming from too. But that's kind of how our adult relationship, like fully adult relationship started. I remember that Christmas, we had Christmas that day.
Oh, yeah.
And we brought each other gifts and things like that because it was a couple days after Christmas. And I gave you a key to my apartment, which was like the craziest thing. But I was like, this is a symbol of like, I want you to know that like I care about you and this is your home too. Like we weren't moving in together or anything, but like you're welcome here and I want you to feel welcome here because during your mission, you had a big family change.
Yeah. I don't have to go into too many details, but my parents split up and my stuff was kind of in between two places a little bit, and also there wasn't necessarily a permanent bed for me.
And your family home was sold and they both got new homes.
Right. So it was all new.
Yeah. And I wanted you to know, like, you're safe with me and you have a home with me. And also, I lived in a 2-story apartment and I didn't want to have to go down my stairs every time you came over. So I gave you a key. And that was important, I think.
Yeah. And then we went to school. That semester. We carpooled, I think.
Yeah, we did.
Which was crazy.
We took Institute together, which is a religious course. We had a lot of fun. You ended up going to my ward, which is like my church branch. You started going to my ward, and we spent so much time together. When we weren't working, we were together constantly. And that was really awesome. And we did things that were like fun dates, but more than that, we cleaned the house. We got gas. We went grocery shopping. You know, we did everyday things together on purpose.
Yeah, to spend time with each other in a manner that, like, this is what it would be like if we were married.
Right. And then I remember we went to one of your friends' weddings pretty soon after we started dating.
Weeks, like 2 weeks, probably.
Yeah. And we had a great time at the wedding. And I remember after the wedding, do you remember what happened?
Did we talk about getting married?
Yeah. You just looked at me and you were like, I want to marry you. And I was like, okay. I was like, sweet. Me too. And so we knew that was a trajectory that we were on. And so we got engaged really fast. We got engaged early March.
3 months about.
Yeah.
Maybe not even 3 full months after I got home. And that was fun. That was our 3rd trip to Disneyland together.
Yeah, we got engaged at Disneyland. That was fun. Another time we got to travel together, and this time we got an Airbnb instead of sleeping in the car. Thank goodness.
It's so much safer.
Oh my gosh, it was so dangerous to drive. Anyway, so that was fun. And then we got engaged and we decided we were going to get married in the summer, that following summer, mostly for convenience of not being in school when we got married.
And not having to wait until Christmas.
Yeah, that was a long time to wait for us since we had been together for like a decade at that point.
And there were 3 bedrooms and 4 people living at my dad's house.
Yeah, I remember sometimes like you'd be staying over at my apartment pretty late at night, and then your brother would text you and be like, hey, are you going to come home tonight?
Or
like,
can I sleep in the bed? Or can
I sleep in the bed?
Instead of the couch. Like there was someone sleeping on a couch.
Yeah, so it wasn't ideal.
In America.
It was not ideal. And so then we ended up getting married, and that was fun.
It was very fun.
We had a big wedding. It was pretty traditional in terms of like a Mormon wedding.
Yeah, not a real traditional wedding.
And a non-Mormon wedding, though, because we did have a ring ceremony because
it's true, a mix of both.
Most of our family could not be in the temple with us when we got married. And we'll make a different video about what it's like to get married in the temple and what our experience was with that, because I think it's very interesting to members and non-members of our church. We got married, and that's when like the real fun starts. Like that's when our lives truly began.
There's so much that has happened.
It's been almost 5 years.
Almost 5 years. And it kind of blurs together.
It does. We've had very intense highs and very, very low lows. But every time I see somebody post like happy anniversary, we've been through the highs and lows, I'm like, ooh, someone cheated. You know what I mean? I think bad things, but I want to make it clear that the highs and the lows that we experience are situational, and that the constant is you and me. You know what I mean? Like I have felt like our relationship has always been extremely stable.
And since being married, our relationship has grown so
immensely.
Much more. And we have both grown as individuals. We're both so much more understanding. We have learned ways to communicate with each other. One of my most recent things is we have a newborn baby. And she'll start crying or wake up at terrible times. And my most recent question, I'll ask Sarah, I'll say, do you have the emotional and physical capacity to change her diaper right now?
Or whatever it is.
Which is like What a question.
That is
Could you
a question.
imagine if every time you were asking someone else to do something for
Mm-hmm.
you or for the baby, you made sure they had the emotional and physical capacity at that time? I would never have asked you that question at the start of our marriage.
No.
I didn't know. I was just like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like,
Yeah.
hey, can you go change the baby's diaper? Like,
Right.
But now, hey, are you able to? Because if you're not, I'll do it.
Right.
But if you are, please
Go.
you do
Please
it.
go.
I don't want to.
Yeah. And that's like, I feel like our emotional intelligence has like skyrocketed because we have spent so many hours upon hours talking.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is we experienced COVID lockdown very soon after we were married. We
Yeah.
got married about 6 months or 8 months before that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so our entire first year and a half of marriage, we were just like shut in a house together. And that's how we would prefer it anyway. And it's
Yeah.
how we live now. But so many people, like older people, are like, wow, you guys have spent more time together than me and my husband of 42 years have.
Yeah.
Because they, are off. He's at work, she's at work doing different things. We both work from home still. We have not spent a night apart since getting married. Everybody thinks that's super crazy. I wouldn't change that for the world. You are my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
I would not want to go hang out with anyone else.
I'd do it if I had to.
You wouldn't though. You've been invited on so many church campouts and things, and you always find an excuse to stay home with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's how our relationship has been. And I don't know, do you want to get into any of the fun things that we've done since getting married, or?
Let's look at the time. We're at 37 minutes.
Yeah. We can give a highlight reel.
Do we have to go chronological?
Yeah, let's go chronological. The
Okay.
first year of our marriage, we lived in this crazy quadplex.
Boy.
It was super cheap. It was $799 a month for a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom place
with a small yard.
with a yard. And that should tell you everything that you need to know.
There was a yard. There was also a small dirt parking area.
Yeah.
2 homeless women lived in the parking area.
Yes. And one of them was the sweetest lady ever. She had about 50 cats. And the
She's
other
so
one
nice.
got arrested for drug use.
Yeah. And then
Several
she came
times.
She came back and she was gone periodically throughout our 10 months that we lived there.
We
because
we had to go.
We left before the lease was ended and we bought this house.
We did. We bought a house
And
within our
paid for
first year.
Rent and the mortgage at the same time.
It was
for a
that
couple
bad.
months.
It was that bad. I remember when we moved into that place, your mom looked at you and she was like, you have a woman to take care of.
We can break the lease. We can break the lease right now.
We were safe there. Everything was okay. We did get a Ring doorbell, and I did catch a domestic violence dispute on the camera when I was at work one day. And I was like, Scott, look at the ring footage right now. Like, there's crazy stuff going on. That was really wild. We bought this house during the pandemic in a time when
It was a very blessed time. We were
Yeah.
again guided, I think, by God.
we're going to make a whole video on that.
Yeah, to look into buying a house. And we got lucky. We made an offer on this house before ever even seeing it.
We saw this house that night that I made the offer, and I remember coming in here, and when I left, I kept referring to it as our house.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, do you remember in our house and I was like, hold on, our offer wasn't even approved yet. Like, but I just felt like we were going to get this house, and we did. It was so wonderful that worked out. We moved into this place, and
Which, had you started your business?
no, I was still working for my
We were
first
doing
company.
our other business. You had a corporate job. I
Yeah.
was still a student.
Working at
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
And our side hustle was an Etsy shop.
It was, and that was just like for fun, but we made like decent money.
We technically, I think, we had profit.
We had profit and made enough money for us to go to Taco Bell.
Yeah.
And all of our trips to Disneyland were a business write-off
Right.
because of photo shoots and things like that.
Disney-themed
Yeah.
Etsy shop.
So that was a lot of fun.
Came here. I was still a student. I was still working at Chick-fil-A.
For a long time.
And your work, when it started to go back into person, you were like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah, I had been working from home because of the pandemic, and then we had to go back in office in October of 2021, which was when COVID was at its peak in Arizona. And I felt
everyone at your job got COVID.
Yes, including me. And I felt extremely uncomfortable by that. So I decided I needed to find a way to work from home. On TikTok, I found this girl who was being a virtual assistant. And I was like, that sounds easy and interesting. I'm going to do it. I remember you came home from work one night and I said, Scott, I have started a business. And you were like, okay.
I was probably more than that. I would always support your businesses.
You always do. But that's what I mean by you saying, okay, because like.
It wasn't like, what?
Yeah.
I wasn't shocked.
You were like, here she goes again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
A new business.
A new business. Like, what are we doing this time? And so then that actually took off.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
You made more money than your other job.
I did. And so I quit my corporate job in January of the following year, which was poor timing because you just got into a major car accident.
Yeah, I got a car accident.
And I had COVID.
So my car was totaled. We had COVID. What else happened? You quit your job.
Yeah.
And I think that was the triple whammy.
That was the triple whammy in January, but we just kept kicking. Things went well with my business. I did it for the whole year. In April, I think it was, we decided to start talking about kids.
Yeah. At the same time also, I quit Chick-fil-A.
Yes. To work for me.
And I worked for you.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun too.
For a whole
the summer
plus a little after that when I was occasionally teaching seminary as a substitute teacher.
Right.
But so we talked about, hey, let's try to have kids now.
Mm-hmm. I don't care about what people know. I had an IUD.
Off of birth control.
Yeah, I got it removed.
Medications that could be detrimental to a fetus.
Yeah.
And,
bummer.
And we started trying to have kids.
Didn't go so well.
A year.
Yeah, we'll make a whole video about that. But like, long story short, we didn't get pregnant until the following year, and then we lost the baby.
Yeah.
And then we got pregnant again, and then we had a baby. So that's exciting.
So,
but we were experiencing that, and then you decided that, well, on your mission, you got a prompting that you wanted to be a seminary teacher.
Mm-hmm. And so I followed that. We might have to talk more about this in another episode as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I substitute taught, and then I went through, there's a process.
There's a ringer
to
go through.
Teacher, and it's very competitive.
Yeah.
And for those of listeners or viewers who don't know, our church has a class, I guess, for high school students daily where it's basically a Bible study group plus the Book of Mormon and other scriptures daily for an hour in places where the church is highly populous, such as where we live and Idaho, Utah. I don't know exactly all the places. Seminary can happen throughout the day and is like part of your high school schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are full-time teachers of seminary that is their employment.
Right.
So I wanted to do that.
And so you started that process, and we'll just skip ahead to the next year. You student taught, and you were seminary teacher.
I was an employee, yeah.
Several.
It was part-time student teaching for a semester.
So you had 2 classes, right? Or 3? So like 60 kids, you were their seminary teacher. There was no like other teacher. You were their seminary teacher for a semester. And then what happened?
And then they did not hire me. They said that I wasn't going to be hired.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
There's a lot to unpack in that whole
That might be part of
well.
our like the way that God has been in our lives video, because that's a very interesting thing. So that was the end. You were still in college.
I was.
At that time.
That was my last semester of college. I thought, I have this job lined up.
Yep.
And then in April, a month before I graduated from college, that's when I was informed that, no, you don't have this job lined up.
So you had to pivot
scramble
fast. And so we were looking at your resume together, and I identified an opportunity for you.
And that led to taking some courses, getting a certification, and getting the job I have now where I am able to work from home.
Yeah, you're able to work from home, and it's I think, a lot less stressful, in some ways less fulfilling, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But overall, we did determine it was the best thing for our family that this happened to us.
I'm happy that it's what's going on right now.
Yeah. So then you graduated and got a job, and at this point, I
experiencing burnout.
I was experiencing such bad burnout because I had been off of antidepressants for over a year trying to get pregnant, had not gotten pregnant yet. I felt super defeated. And so I just kind of like was dragging my feet through the mud with work, and I kind of stopped trying.
You did.
And you
definitely stopped trying.
You fully supported us financially and emotionally. I was not doing so hot. And my grandpa passed away also, which was super sad. It was he had Alzheimer's, so it was like just really hard for the family. And right after that is when we got pregnant.
Yeah.
And that was so exciting. I remember like
we literally had appointments to meet with fertility specialists scheduled for like a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
And then we got a few positive pregnancy tests.
Oh my gosh, I was so excited.
And we canceled the appointments.
Yeah, and I converted those appointments into confirmatory appointments for the pregnancy, and I was so excited. And we did the whole thing. I like set out the letter board for him, and I had a little baby outfit. It was so exciting, and we bought presents for the grandparents and said, like, you're going to be a grandma, you're going to be a grandpa. And then we went to our first ultrasound appointment, and there was no heartbeat. And that was super hard, like really, really hard for us to go through.
Yeah, because not only had we been trying to we'd been trying to get pregnant in a very scientific way of tracking everything for a year. We had been talking about parenting for multiple years. We would go, if we ate at a restaurant, years before we even had the discussion about now's the time to have kids, we would go through hypothetical scenarios of like, what if your teenage child does X?
Yeah. Or
how
like,
would you respond?
Yeah. Or like, when do you think they should be able to have a cell phone?
Yeah.
Like we had a parenting strategy 3 years before we, had a baby. And so it was consuming our every thought. And then we were the only couple in our entire church that didn't have a baby. Yeah. And that was really hard. Too. And we were invited to so many like young family events, and we were the only people there without kids.
Yeah.
And that was super, super hard for us because it wasn't for lack of trying, And for some people, it is. Some people want to focus on their careers and things like that. But for us, we wanted it so badly. It made us so sad. So I withdrew from all of those, extracurricular church events. I didn't go to church on Mother's Day. We were having a hard time. And then we even had a baby moon scheduled because we wanted to go on a cruise, and you have to go before so many weeks. And I was going to be like 15 or 16 weeks pregnant when we were going to go on the cruise. And we had that booked, and we lost the baby, and I had to get a surgical procedure to complete the miscarriage, which was horrible. And we still had to go on the baby moon because we had bought a cruise, and it was fun. We had a fun time on that trip, but it was bittersweet.
But the pictures, you can see our eyes
we
look a little bit.
We look bummed,
ragged.
Yeah, we were having a hard time, and then we had a discussion of like, should we, book an appointment with an official fertility specialist, not just a regular doctor. And we kind of came to the conclusion, like, this freaking sucks. Like, let's just take a break from this entire conversation until next year, meaning 2023.
And it was basically, let's stop all the science.
Yeah.
Let's just
be normal people.
We're not trying to have a kid. We're just taking a break from all of that.
Right. We just needed a break from it. And then I remember we were sitting at that dining room table right there when we were having this conversation, and it was like 10 p.m. And I was like, okay, like, we're not going to do this anymore. And then I got up and I was like, I need to take a pregnancy test. And I had no reason to think that at all, but I did. And it was positive. Yeah, and it was
crazy.
And I said, Scott, you need to look at this. And he was like, okay.
So we got pregnant right then after we decided we weren't going to try.
The day that we decided.
The minutes after is when we found out, and we didn't trust the pregnancy. Well, I'm going into too much detail. What I was going to say is this will probably be good for us to get more detail in our next episode where
Totally.
we discuss. But yeah, so we've gone through a pregnancy and a half.
Yeah.
Right? We have a baby. We have this house. We both now, Sarah isn't doing that business we had mentioned.
One of my clients hired me full time. So I've been working full time. And that decision was made because I was tired from all the stuff going on in our personal lives. I just wanted health insurance.
Yeah, just someone to have a benefits package is nice. And also doing taxes as a self-employed person is
it was a lot. And
a lot to keep track of.
just getting clients constantly, like I had too much going on personally. I just wanted to work for somebody else. So that opportunity came and it was great. So I've been doing that, working from home. You've been working from home. We now have our daughter. We went through a whole pregnancy together. Scott was an absolute angel. And we've had so many good experiences. Yeah. And
so that's some of
us,
what we've gone through.
Yeah. And I think that it's really exciting to see all of this growth. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to start this podcast is we've spent so much time talking and deconstructing our beliefs and our upbringings. And we've really identified ways to communicate with not only each other, but our families, different personality types. We've spent just so much time doing this.
One of our favorite activities is talking about relationships, whether it's something that you hear on a TikTok or come across one of those Reddit posts we've read, or even people we know,
right,
and the struggles that they're going through. We spend hours discussing, all sides of relationships, what would be the ideal situation in our eyes, how people can make it through these struggles and trials. And that's like our favorite thing.
Yeah.
We have these discussions, and now we decided to just have them with a camera.
And some pretty fancy microphones. But I want to make it clear that like through everything that we've experienced, I have so much joy. And I feel very strongly that that joy is there because of you and our relationship. It's the truth. And so I just want that for other people.
Yeah.
And if we are able to make it from like raggedy little teens who were rude to each other and disrespectful and not good communicators to this very serious, completely intertwined relationship where I truly view you as an extension of myself. And I think that you feel the same way. Like we are truly a singular unit.
That's what God said to Adam, right? Is that a man will leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife, and they twain will become one flesh, which twain means two. I didn't know that for the longest time.
It sounds like twine.
Both of them.
Yeah.
The two of them become one.
Yes. And I truly believe what has happened, and that
I feel that way.
That absolutely embodies our relationship. And like I said, if we're able to convert what was going on into this, I feel like that is exceptional, and I want it for other people too, because it has influenced my life for the better. And I believe that I have like lasting joy because of this relationship.
And I think we can help.
Yeah.
Or at least give perspectives and strategies that can be helpful.
Right. So for this podcast, that's what we're going to be doing, is giving strategies. We're going to be dissecting different relationship questions and problems. Eventually, we're going to have other couples on talking about their experiences, and couples of different stages, engaged, married for a long time, second marriages, things like that. Yeah. And also hopefully relationship experts, marriage counselors.
Exactly. Degrees, education, and they'll all be helping us. And so if that sounds like something you're interested in, subscribe, follow. What other options are there? There's like buttons.
There's downloads for podcasts.
There's downloads?
Yeah, there's downloads.
Anyway.
Do all the things.
If that's something you're interested in, I think it would be very valuable to anyone. going through a relationship, even if you want to listen and hear the things that you might disagree with, so that you can still build your relationship on, this is something I should do, this is something we shouldn't do, because each relationship is unique. And so follow along and learn with us.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode.
Do you have a love story worth sharing? Head to eternalcompanionspodcast.com to be a guest on our show.
And don't forget to check out the show notes.
See you next week.